Hello and welcome to another edition of the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin.
That's my dad.
How are you?
We are continuing. We're about 2/3 the way through now, Dad, with our series on the best team of every single MLB franchise, their all-time dream team, where today's feature is the Philadelphia Phillies. If you're just joining us, some rules we follow. You have to have at least 3 years of team service time to, in this case, the Phillies, to be considered on this list. We go through catcher, through right fielder, so every position, as well as starting pitcher, a reliever or setup man, and then a closer. And for the fun of it, we talk about our favorite manager, as well as our favorite team logo. The Phillies certainly have a lot of logos. That's probably one of the most we've seen so far with the logos. It's like 15 different logos. So 100 years of history will do that to you.
Yes.
We kind of ping pong. We go back and forth. Another rule that we follow is that you can't just put, like, you have two great people at third base. So for the Phillies, you think Scott Rollins and Mike Schmidt. You can't put Scott Rollins at center field or left field just because, he's got a great defense. It doesn't translate. You got to make sure that they play for that position.
I'll put them as relief pitcher.
Right, exactly. It's perfect idea. You have to keep them to the position they're true to play and that they're familiar playing. And we ping pong. We start with catcher. I'll let my dad go first, and then I'll go first base and go back from there.
For catcher, I have Darren Daulton.
All right, so Darren Daulton played a lot of positions. Obviously, catcher is one of them. Why Darren?
Darren was during their, I think, glory days of late 70s into 80s and everything else, was by far one of the leaders of the clubhouse, handled the pitching staff extremely well. As I looked at the competition of the Phillies, I think he stood out the most. Left-handed pull hitter, and when they played in the vet, he did very well offensively as well.
Mm-hmm. Daulton's a good choice. I think with catching, you have about three choices. You have Daulton, you have Chooch, and you have Mike Lieberthal, who is my pick. So Darren Daulton really only played 4 quality seasons as the Phillies backstop. There's a lot of other seasons where he played like 70, 80 games, so I don't know if there's some injuries there.
He had some knee problems.
Right. Lieberthal is a little bit more consistent, and he's a Gold Glove winner compared to Chooch and Daulton, which I don't think ever won a Gold Glove. So I just went with a little bit more consistent person that I can rely on behind the plate each game. For first base, I think you can kind of go old with this, or you can go kind of new. I went new, and I went with Ryan Howard. Just because before Ryan Howard injured his Achilles, I believe it was, in that fateful World Series game, I think he probably was the best first baseman during the 2000s. He was an MVP, he was a 3-time All-Star, and obviously every game he ever played was in a Phillies uniform.
I had Dick Allen.
There you go. So you can go back in time. So why Dick over Ryan?
Because he was the star of the Phillies when the Phillies weren't any good. So he was a great power hitter. I went on to the White Sox as well. Had a good career with the White Sox. He's one of these guys that was on the, knocking on the door of the Hall of Fame and everything else. Didn't get in, but he had great stats over the years. But his best years, and because he went to the White Sox with DH and first base, but with the Phillies, he was the star they had during the era that they weren't so good. Mm-hmm. So, and then, you got to mention John Kruk.
Crucky.
In all that kind of stuff. The character of all characters for the Phillies. So as I was going first baseman, I had to mention Kruk just because I think he was the clown of the clubhouse, and I think he did a great job when he did the broadcasting as well.
Yeah, with a team so deep in history like the Phillies, we're talking a team that's 1890 to now. You're going to have depth at all these positions. I think Pete Rose deserves a mention. When he was a Philly, he played first base mainly, switched from third base to first base from the Reds to the Phillies. He played a lot of games at first base, but sort of was in the declining years of his life. So I think should earn a 25-man roster for the Phillies, but not the starting job at first base. Who do you have at second?
I have Juan Samuel.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's still a coach in the Orioles organization, but Juan was the guy who batted leadoff during the glory years, and I thought was just a great person. I know who you're going to bring up, so I'm not going to steal your thunder, but Juan was my choice just because I liked what he did, and he was a true leadoff hitter, stole bases, wore his socks high, so he had some style behind him.
Yes. There will be some Always Sunny in Philadelphia references for our Philly fans out there. I gotta go with Chase. Utley. Meeting you would be a real home run if you make Mac's life. So obviously Chase Utley with the Phillies, just is a fantastically pure player. No Gold Gloves in Chase's career, but I think he was still very solid defensively. 6-time All-Star, best years of his life were with the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely is not a fan of. Sorry, no Mets are a fan of Chase for any reason from
Yeah.
being a Philly and then taking out one of their players in that Dodgers Mets playoff game.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I go with Chase.
Yeah, I mean, for a second baseman, I think he was like
He has some power.
Yeah, I was gonna say second or third in a lineup, and was just so consistent. And I think again, big part of the community, and I was a leader in the clubhouse and everything else. But I didn't want to say Chase. I knew you wanted to talk about Chase.
If that was your pick, you should have done it. I can still always
No,
talk
no,
about Chase.
no. But no, I really did like.
I like your hair.
But there was another guy named Dave Cash, who was another great second baseman in the mix as well. But again, just they had some real good choices for second base. But yeah, but it was great.
For shortstop, I think it's someone obviously that Chase play with. I think it's a real simple choice. It's Jimmy Rollins. It's J-Roll.
Yeah.
MVP, which I didn't know a lot about this Jimmy Rollins. I knew he was, like, before really diving into his stats. MVP season, 4 Gold Gloves, 2,500 hits. He's on the Hall of Fame ballot next year. I don't think he'll get in. I think he shouldn't fall off for a couple years. I think he should make that minimum, and he has some really quality years. Lifetime, 115 triples. Very impressive there.
Ran well.
And over 400 stolen bases. So he's a very quality all-around player. So I like Jimmy a whole bunch.
I'm with you 100%. If you really, as we talk about the great players of the Phillies, it's going to be in that era that they were just fantastic. Playoffs every year, World Series, and everything else. And the Phillies got old all at the same time. And then all of a sudden you could see them. All right, what we're going to do? We got to break it down and then not be great for a little bit and build the system back up, and that's what they're doing right now. But all these guys who were so great for so long, and when Ryan Howard did the Achilles, that was the decline, the start of the decline. And as we talk about these guys, they had a great team, and they were just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. For third base, we hit our first Hall of Famer on this list. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike Schmidt, the Cub killer of all times. He loved playing at Wrigley Field, by the way. But Mike Schmidt, I think, played with Philadelphia 15 plus years and was just the king of Philadelphia during that time. Perennial All-Star, power hitter. Defensively was very good as well, but just one of the, I would think, the top 3 Phillies of all time.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned Scott Rowland earlier. I think Scott is a fantastic player, but you can't match up against Mike Schmidt.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think Phillies, you think Mike Schmidt. It's just a very simple choice. 3-time MVP and 10-time Gold Glove winner. So offensively, defensively,
520 home runs.
He had everything going on for him. And then there's some people in Philadelphia, like at that mall, that don't know who Mike Schmidt is on Christmas. So you got to know who Mike Schmidt is. So he is.
If you haven't seen the Santa,
you got one for Von Hayes in here. Always Sunny Christmas special. Please go watch it.
Yes, make sure that is part of your Christmas routine every year. Just makes your Christmas so much brighter. But yeah.
As we go into the outfield, I really think the Phillies for 130 years, have been blessed with fantastic outfielders. I mean, now they have McCutchen. Now they have Harper. They haven't served long enough for the 3 requirement to obviously make this list. I think Harper obviously will one day. But we're still looking at a lot of depth to a lot of these positions, so there will be names that, in my opinion, get left off this list, but should be, again, on like a 25-man roster. Great depth. For left, I went with Greg Luzinski. 4-time All-Star, really high power. Up until this point, I mean, I think Schmidt has some power. I think one of my other outfielders is going to have some power, but Greg will have a lot of power too. So I think this lineup's going to need him.
Nicknamed the Bull.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Big, powerful man, and athletic. He was, he was built like a linebacker.
Yep. And
he played the outfield fairly well. But during the time that Pete Rose was part of the Phillies, he played a little left field. But again, with the point you made, he played kind of all over the place. But Greg, again, was the one that, again, during the glory years, he was the one at 30 home runs every year. And
consistent.
Yeah, and was just fantastic. And another guy that big part of the clubhouse and seemed to have a lot of fun playing in Philadelphia.
For center?
I have Richie Ashburn.
Another Hall of Famer.
And if you look at his stats, he had a great career. But when he was with Philadelphia, he was their perennial all-star. hitting 330s almost every year, got on base, leadoff hitter. He was the star of the show back in the 50s and 60s. And if you look back, I think he wore number 1 as well, but he was their star. And I think, again, multiple All-Star games during that era.
Yeah, this was a simple pick for me. Just great average, consistent player. Not much else to say. True Hall of Famer.
No Von Hayes?
So you got to have Von Hayes, honestly. So Von Hayes should make the 25-man roster for the Phillies.
Oh, yeah just because.
Yeah, Von Hayes. But no, I do think Von Hayes is a quality Philly, but he's not a starter. For right field, I think there's more.
No Shane Victorino mentioned?
Shane Victorino, probably in the top 25. I have to limit. I have like 3 deep at catcher. I have like 3 deep at second. So like.
Well, what a popular player in
I'm not
Philadelphia.
gonna have any pitchers. Yeah, no. Flying Hawaiian is one of my favorites too. Don't forget Rollo Ibanez in left too. I mean, there's a lot of quality people, especially more recently in Philly. That.
And there was a guy named Gary Maddox who was a great player.
Yeah, very fast in center too.
Yeah, and he was part of the glory days and all that stuff. But if you just talk about center field, there's 4 absolutely stars right there.
Crucky can play outfield too.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some options.
Yeah.
For right, I think it will be Harper if we did this, in a couple years from now. But I got to give credit to Bobby Abreu. He was extremely consistent right fielder. 30 home runs, guaranteed every year with the Phillies. 100 RBIs. He had that fantastic home run derby. I know that's not in his stats, but I immediately think of that amazing home run derby run Bobby Abreu once did. And he had a 300 average too. Great arm, very consistent. He earns right field for me.
I have Johnny Callison.
Tell me about Johnny.
Johnny Callison was late 50s, 60s, was by far the star of the Phillies back then. Played for other teams once he left Philadelphia. But again, kind of like Richie Ashburn of his era, he was the star, perennial all-star and everything else. And he was the one that carried the team back then, hit 3rd or 4th. And again, top 10 popular Philadelphia Phillies of all time, Johnny Callison. And probably doesn't get a whole lot of ink, but he, again, was a star back in that era.
I'll have to look up Johnny Callison and learn more about this guy.
Yeah, and war number 6.
All right. So moving into our pitchers now, again, great depth for starters as well as relievers. Who is taking the mound for you?
Steve Carlton every day. And I don't know, and you may not know this.
4 Cy Youngs.
When the Phillies were really, really, really bad, they won a total of like 59, 60 games. Steve Carlton, during that year, won 27 of those games. He went 27-3 on a team that won 60 games. That's how bad the Phillies were, and that's how great Carlton was. And McCarver was his personal catcher back then, and that's, it kind of made McCarver pretty famous. But Steve Carlton, I always remember that he won almost every game they won that year by himself. He was a great pitcher.
It's like a Don Drysdale type.
Big man, by the way. 6'6", something like that. Or number 32. Nobody could hit him. Him and Bob Gibson were the stars of that era.
Learning more about Carlton, obviously, was before my time, if you couldn't tell. So 4 Cy Youngs.
Talk about Von Hayes, though.
I know. I didn't want to reference Von Hayes. That's 100% because of Always Sunny. Consistent 35-plus starts a year. I think there was one that topped 40. He's always led the league, well, not always, but most times he led the league in innings pitched and strikeouts, but also, obviously, in those rough years for hits. I think he might have led the league in home runs given up as well. So he had a low ERA, but he pitched so much, so naturally those hits, those home runs will tally up. But I think it's interesting that a Cy Young can be, highest in strikeouts and also highest in hits. Kind of something you don't see in today's ballgame.
He was one of the first pitchers, and then Nolan Ryan stole this from him, that between games and after games, he used to put his arm in a vat of rice, uncooked rice, and then would strengthen his arm by just putting his arm in rice and moving it back and forth. And because he pitched all those innings, that's how Ryan and Carlton stayed so strong, is do these exercises. And that's what his tip was he used to use rice and push it back and forth and how to strengthen his arm. Unique, huh?
I would never have thought of that.
Yeah.
So here we go into setup versus closer. So another Always Sunny reference, Steve Bedrosian. He is my setup man. I think he's a fantastic. He earned a Cy Young when he was a closer for the Phillies. But Brad Lidge earns my 9th inning slot due to that 2008 year, obviously. Lights out Lidge. I think he had a better overall ERA than Steve. So Bedrock gets 8th. Lights out Lidge gets 9th.
Ooh, no Tug McGraw?
No Tug McGraw.
Ooh, Tug. You got to have.
Well, who are you putting him? 8th, 9th?
I'm putting him as my closer,
Okay.
and I'm putting Brad Lidge as setup.
Okay, so no Bedrock at all.
No.
So who's the bigger snub those watching at home, McGraw or Bedrock?
Well, if you got Von Hayes, I got Tug McGraw.
Von Hayes is not a starter for me. It's just in my 25 man.
If you got a Von, I got a Tug.
Jesus.
But you know,
we have a good time.
You know who else was great during his era was Mitch Williams, and
who's from this area,
right? And then Gene Garber was a fantastic closer as well. So just doing research, I mean, there was some really good relief pitchers for the Phillies.
Starters too.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. The pitching was that. Roy Halladay.
Hamels. I mean, anyone. Kurt Schilling. I mean, pick a name. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. You know, Robin Roberts was part of that. But I mean, again, because they've been here along, you know, so many years and all that stuff, it was hard to choose, you know, a true star and all that stuff. But yeah, I agree. There was a lot of great choices to go with the Phillies.
So who is managing this?
Dallas Green.
Dallas. Tell me about Dallas, because I want the more recent name.
Okay. Dallas was the one who was the GM.
Was he the 1980s World Series? Okay,
Bingo.
So I want the more recent one.
Yep. He's won the World Series. He went to the Cubs and got kind of resurrected the Cubs, and then went back to the Phillies and became their manager, and was during the Larry Boa era and all that time, and brought those back against the Orioles in '83, and then was part of that, and it was just a great baseball mind. And I think he might have had a GM and manager back in those days. So it's Dallas Green.
Okay. Who do you think I went with? Charlie Manuel. Just someone that I think he has the most wins in team history. Fun fact about the Phillies, though, they've lost more games than they've won in franchise history. They actually are not even obviously at the .500 winning percentage. Kind of so many rough seasons of loss after loss after loss. But Charlie Manuel gets it for me. And in terms of logos, as we show the many multitude faces of the Phillies franchise, Dad, what is your pick? A lot of options.
I'm not crazy about any of them, to be quite honest, but if I had to choose one, I'd go with a curl with the baseball Phillies.
So the classic Philly P. I obviously, I'm a man of history, so I love the addition of the Liberty Bell, and I just like this with the baseball diamond. A little bit more than just the Liberty Bell here. So the 92 through 2019 logo is pretty great. But there's some really cool ones in there. I don't exactly know what's happening in 1950. I think it might have been like a space race. Like, let's talk about going into orbit with the Phillies, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. And yeah, I mean, there's Phillies, but it's a bird, and I'm pretty sure a Philly is a female horse. But,
correct. That one doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in 1944, but whatever. Maybe you do. Sound off if you know more details with the 1944 Phillies logo.
I do like the Liberty Bell and all that stuff, but I think
the Philly Beach classic.
The uniforms during that era when they had the curl with the P seemed to be a really good-looking uniform and all that stuff. So that's what I go. They used to have blue uniforms that were really sharp. Yeah. So that's what I remember.
80s were a hell of a time.
That's
a lot of cool jerseys in the 80s. Astros come to mind.
Oh, yeah. Oakland.
Yeah. So that is it for our Phillies special on this. I hope you enjoy it. Again, there's a lot of debates between some of the classics. You know, do you go more the golden era? You go the greats of the time period of Mike Schmidt and Pete Rose. Kind of pick your thoughts. So let us know in the comments below who made the right pick. Who was the biggest snub? I don't have Tug McGraw. He doesn't have Steve Bedrock Bedrosian. He doesn't have Bobby Abreu. Keep that in mind.
But we love Von Hayes.
We love Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Thank you, Mac. But yeah, anything else to say about the Phillies?
Do watch the Christmas special of Always Sunny.
About the Phillies.
That's what we wanted to leave you with. That is fantastic.
If you're a Philly fan, you've never watched Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you should definitely watch that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for, again, bearing with us and enjoying, hopefully, some of our jokes and pandering. We definitely enjoy doing this. Keep watching. So please give us a like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts on this special. Thanks.
Have a great day.